All right, so this morning, since I was so hungover from drinking last night, it changed the way that my day would end up evolving. Normally, every Sunday starts out the same way. I get up at around 6 o'clock, I do some laundry, then I get ready for the gym at 8. I come back from the gym, I eat something, and then I go do an errand. I come back, I work on YouTube, I eat something, go to the gym again, come back, work on YouTube, and then start drinking. That's been every Sunday, probably for years. And because I screwed it up by allowing myself to consume more Pearl beer last night, I just changed the cycle in which I did things. And every time I change the cycle, I see different people. Because when you do the same thing over and over again, you're going to find that other people are doing the same thing. When I go to the gym at 6 o'clock in the morning during the week, I see the same people every day. I see the same people that don't like me, that make faces at me, and inevitably I just look away because they're going to be there. Same way with everything else that you do in life. Every once in a while, you'll see something different, but for the most part, as long as your schedule stays the same, you're going to see the same people. And that means that your life is going to be very lonely, I would say. Today, I've actually been getting text messages from one of my latest ladies. And I sometimes, when you're establishing yourself with a new person, you don't want to say things too quickly or you don't want to move too quickly. Because when you're dealing with someone who's very introverted to the point where it hurts their life, they're so introverted. Like, I knew from the very first day that I met her that she wasn't normal. Like, there was something off about her. She has a keen intelligence, but no emotional. She's cold. And she doesn't want to be that way, but I'm sure she's on the spectrum for something. I can't quite tell you because I haven't spent enough time with her in order to really look and see what's going on. But today she was sending me pictures of her toes and her nails, and I was just like, well, this moved in an odd direction rather quickly. And as I was having all of those thoughts, I got into my Promobile after the gym this afternoon, and there was one just like it, right? One, the exact year, the exact model, and I thought to myself, I wonder how long that person has had that car and why they chose to decorate their car. It's like people who put clothing on their animals. It's just, why would you do that? Anyhow, I was I was buying gas and I was looking over at everyone else buying gas. And it reminded me of my life 3 years ago when I didn't have a car because I'd sat at the bus stop that was in front of me while I was pumping gas into my car many, many times. Probably even hundreds of times I've been on Southern Avenue on the city bus because it kind of goes everywhere. I've always lived off of Southern somewhere. If you were to plot on a chart everywhere that I've lived within about 2 miles of Southern in either east or west, starting from the university, Arizona State University. So I I don't know how to put this. I kind of looked at the city bus and then I looked at my car and I thought that that was a different version of me that was out there waiting for the city bus because I remember there was one time I had to go all the way over to East Mesa on the bus and then it took 2 hours and no bus would come and you're just sitting there. And this is what I don't think about now, how much it inconvenienced me when the buses weren't running or when the bus broke down or the bus didn't show up. But to the city, they don't care that one man can't get to work. And with that said, here are my three talking points. This is kind of a personal story, I guess. I tried to tell it the best I could. Like I made a pretty large paragraph, probably a run-on paragraph. And then I fed it into the machine, and these are the talking points that I came up with. The shift from public to private spaces, navigating the complexities of car ownership, and observing humanity in passing. So as you guys well know, I like looking at the proletariat. The NPCs are hilarious because they don't know they're NPCs. If you guys are old enough to remember the Nintendo game A Link to the Past, Zelda A Link to the Past, like when you would go into a village and you would talk to people, and they had certain text boxes, right? They just blurted out the same thing over and over again. There was no logic. There was just the same. It was just an NPC. It was a non-playable character, and that's what most humans are. There is no complex thought or feelings or behaviors. It's just we react to the situation we're in, and for most of us, in survival mode, we react to having to deal with life in a very harsh way where life hasn't been easy. And I think the main reason why I thought about that is because, as I was telling Salon Girl number two, she's really poor. Like, really, really poor. As I mentioned to you guys, she makes $300 a week working at the salon. And when you meet someone that poor, I mean, I'm not that poor, but she is. Like, I make more money doing what I'm doing right now than she does in an entire month. So, with that said, let's get into our talking points before I end up going on and on. All right, so transitioning from public transportation to driving a personal car changes the way we experience the world. On the bus, you're part of a shared space, constantly aware of others, while driving creates a more isolated experience with everyone in their own bubble. This shift can make us feel more distanced from the people around us, even as we share the same roads. This is something that I noticed because when you ride the bus, all kinds of strange things happen. Like there was one time, there was a girl who went sat in the middle back seat of the far back of the bus, put her legs up, and she wasn't wearing any underwear. There was another girl one time who got on the bus and decided that it was time that she needed to go number two in her pants, and she smiled at me as chunks of yellow tofu ran down the sides of her legs. She was very attractive, ironically enough, and obviously there's something going on there. I haven't seen number two that bright yellow my whole life coming out of someone so attractive. And then there was the girl one night that told me that she caught me looking at her feet and took me back to her house. And the second she started getting ready for the bump and grind, I ran out of there. Like there was something about that encounter, what was about to happen with a person that I just met on the bus. And she was still wearing her Circle K uniform. And as I remember, her feet were really attractive. And she knew, I mean, all women know that we look at their feet. They wouldn't spend so much time and energy and resources on their feet if they didn't know that men were looking at their feet. And also, please cover your feet if you have ugly feet. But when you're that close to people in a setting in which you all share one thing, for the most part, anyone that's riding the city bus is not going to be a person of means, right? Unless you lost your driving privileges because of something you did repeatedly. You're not going to end up there with us. Like the bus should have the word losers in neon letters over the top of it, glowing as it moves through the city at a snail's pace. Everywhere you go on the bus takes forever. I remember during the pandemic, I got onto the Southern bus to go to the Superstition Springs Mall because I just gotten a new camera and I wanted to try it out. And I had a vision of what that mall looked like from when I was a little kid. I hadn't been back over there in East Mesa for a very long time, but it's where I grew up. That's where I went to elementary school. That's where I had my first experiences living in America, so it holds a near and dear space to me, especially my childhood home. And I remember thinking to myself, the bus was like a floating homeless shelter. That's what it was. The only people that were on that bus with me were homeless people, and the bus driver felt like he was running a daycare center. He had to keep yelling at people to put their COVID mask back on because the homeless people kept taking it off because they didn't care. A lot of them, you could tell, were insane. I mean, they were all going to the same place, wherever that was, to get their fix. They all seemed to be pretty excited to be going somewhere where they had something that they wanted. But the distance that you feel from people once you stop riding the bus, like there was, I think the highlight of my 20 years of riding the bus every day was one time. And the irony is that the bus it was taking a student to where I currently work now. If that doesn't sound like irony, this was the best experience I ever had on a city bus. She was drop dead gorgeous. I was living in on the other side of South Mountain, and I was riding the 56 bus. She got on in that neighborhood, a very nice neighborhood. She sat right next to me, and it was so hot, and it was so crowded in that bus that she put her leg up against me, and their skin stuck to mine. Right, it stuck like it when I was talking to her about something about going to school because we were both going to school at the same time. I wonder what happened to her. Anyhow, the bus stopped in front of my current job and it ended. Like we were having such a good time, and then suddenly the doors opened and she was gone, and I never saw her again. Yeah, it's the bus is kind of a strange place. Sometimes you see women being attacked on the bus. That's not an uncommon thing. It's like if I was a single woman, I wouldn't get on the bus. There's no way in hell, and I've met lots of women who've had the same experience on the train and the bus, is that there's a lot of people who are on the bus to cause problems, and the problems might not be just with them. I mean, there are a lot of people who are on substances and have no homes. Like if you can't do your substance and be at home protected inside your own little cocoon, you're going to have to do it out there where other people have to see you. All right, talking point number two. For those who've lived without a car, the responsibility of maintaining one can feel overwhelming. Learning about gas, repairs, insurance, road rules, this adjustment represents the added pressure and complexity of managing resources, especially for someone who's only known a life focused on meeting basic needs. That was something I'm dreading the day that I have to change a tire. I've had two major things, get stuck in my tire that I needed to go have repaired. And the first time I got something, it was like a 6-inch bolt that was sticking out of the sidewall of my tire. I don't know why it didn't explode, uh, but I had to go get that. And if you drive an all-wheel drive car, you know this, that they have to shave your tires in order to match them up, or else you have to get four new ones because that's how all-wheel drive cars work. And they don't tell you that when you buy it. So that gas, I mean, I don't drive a whole lot like this. After I went to the gym today, I went to the gas station and I spent about $11 on gas for the week, which is probably pretty low comparatively to what Mello spends every week, since she's probably still working right now because of her 12-hour days. And she's driving around all over the place. And I was talking to her this morning over text. I don't know what she's doing now, but she's probably working. Let's see. So, also repairs. Like I was told when I first got the car that my car needed new shocks. I don't really drive it enough to know what it would feel like with new shocks. And insurance has steadily gone up, even though I've had zero incidents in my entire life. I've never had an incident with my car, except for when I was driving my parents' car because I didn't care about that car because it was my parents' car and they let me drive it, but it was always assumed that it was their car and they let me use it. But that and the rules, I always am fascinated by how we swim like fish do, right? Like anchovies do in the ocean, right? The anchovies, they swim around in unison, if you sit there, and this is something I was fascinated by before I even got a car. If you sit at the overpass and you look down at the highway, at the US 60, and you look at it, everyone's going straight. Like it's uncanny to me that no one's swerving, no one's going in odd direction. Everyone's kind of like obedient. Like it's just understood that you do things on the road that make sure that everyone else is not crashing into one another. Like there was one time I was coming back from seeing the sleep doctor, and I was coming around up off of the highway, same highway, and there was two cars smashed into the barrier side by side. And I was like, how does that even happen? There was one night when I was coming back from Walmart, ironically enough, from where I can see the light and the train tracks where they cross here on Southern Avenue. There was two street racers that were racing down this road on Kyrene, and it looks like they both lost control of their vehicles and crashed into the same what is it called, the thing that lowers the metal bar so you can't cross when the train comes. They were both smashed into it like at a very high speed in order to do that much damage to the motor. It looked like they both went, I don't know, several feet into the thing, into the barrier. And I didn't see any people around, but there's no way you didn't get hurt in a car crash that powerful. Anyhow, moving on to my last talking point because I'm coming up on running out of time again. So, sitting at a red light or glancing at other drivers can spark curiosity, empathy, wondering about their struggles, joys, and daily lives. In our fast paced world, it's rare to connect, even briefly, with strangers, but these moments remind us that each driver carries their own story, adding a unique layer to our shared experience on the road. So I'm always very curious when I'm sitting at a red light. Like I look left and I look right, and I always think that somewhere someone is going to pull up next to me and they're going to pull up their shirt and flash their giant bonkers at me. It hasn't happened yet, but I'm still hoping that all of those movies that I saw on the hub someday become a reality. I don't know why we believe that that's some sort of normal thing, but the only thing that's ever happened, I had someone wave at me one time, and this being Arizona, you're lucky you didn't have something wave something else at you. Because at work, my friend Alicia told me that one of her coworkers, years ago, was driving to work and ironically got murked by an angry road rage person, and she has a fear of driving because of that incident. I mean, what are you supposed to do if someone gets mad about you doing something? Maybe you did it intentionally, maybe you cut them off intentionally, but I try to make certain that I never cut people off. Like I always give people plenty of distance, and I try to be a decent human being while I'm on the road because people do stupid things. Like I've had people pull out right in front of me. I've had people cut me off. I've had people, do all kinds of crazy things on the road, especially those driverless, the Waymo cars. Sometimes the Waymo cars, they're on one side of the street and they're on the other side of the street. I mean, it's the software that controls those cars. I mean, I'm sure it's safer than a human driver because the Waymo driver can't be intoxicated, or at least I hope. I hope that the artificial intelligence that drive cars never learn about alcohol or Susie Rottencrotch. But I'm fascinated by the people around me because you don't know if those people, especially in the morning at 8 o'clock on the way to work on a Monday morning, how people feel about going to work. If they feel like I do, hollow inside about going to work because they're going to a place that they don't want to go to. And I often wonder, it's like, are you going to a job that you went to school for, but after you got out of school and actually started doing the job, you didn't like it? And I've heard, the profession I've heard the most where people complain about not liking their job when they thought they were going to like it is massage therapist. And the reason for that is you don't get to pick and choose your customers. You don't get someone that's in my kind of shape every single time. Inevitably, and this is probably the default, you're going to get someone that has odor issues, that's large. I mean, the comments this morning on my live stream about those people running in the park with the little pigs on their t-shirts was that a lot of those people were large. And as a massage therapist, you're going to have to deal with that. In fact, I've heard people with body jobs that they complain about other odors further down south, especially in women. If you're giving those Brazilian Brazilian cleanup jobs, inevitably you're going to get some of that trout aroma coming up into your nostrils. I also hear that feet smell pretty bad too on some people when they come in to get massages. But with that said, I think that I have touched on everything except it's rare to connect briefly with strangers. That's the one thing that I miss from riding the buses. On the average day, even in your work, I mean, I don't have coworkers that I like. And you rarely get to connect with strangers because, again, you're using the word strangers. By using the word strangers, you're implying dangers. And I'm not saying they're not, but we find strangers to be people who threaten us. A stranger is a person you stay away from because you don't know them, you don't know their intentions, and you don't know what they're thinking or not thinking. But stranger has a negative connotation always in our culture. And everyone in your life is going to be a stranger until you know them. In fact, the person that I've been texting with today, Sloan Girl number 2, I'm sure to her I'm still a stranger. But to me, I've become very attached to her. And if we're talking outside of her work, I mean, we've been talking for hours. She actually just got quiet about half an hour ago when I started making this video. But she's been sending me like pictures all day, and it's just when you walk into a place and you meet someone that's the stranger that you don't want to talk to, and sometimes that stranger you don't talk to them because you're not physically attracted to them. I mean, it takes a lot for us, especially if the attraction isn't mutual. Sometimes you meet someone and you're very physically attracted to them, and them not so much to you. So you have to build some sort of pseudo relationship with them in order to move forward in not being labeled stranger danger who wants to grab you and take you from behind and have their way with you. But that's the worst case scenario. The worst case scenario is that they grab you by your unmentionables and pound the hell out of you. Actually, I read a book like that where a girl's like, the guy ended up beast beep me that I was like, I was reading this book, I remember, and I was thinking to myself, I think it was a book on eating disorders, and this girl's telling like a dramatic run-in with the guy that she was with that ended up causing her eating disorder, and the way that she described the way he took her, I imagine that that's how we envision our meetings with strangers. Is he just took me violently and repeatedly, sort of like our favorite character on this channel. Also wanted to thank the person that asked me to ask the AI to envision what Fleece Johnson looks like. And I just wrote Fleece, and if you guys haven't seen it, go to the About tab right now on the channel and look at my post for what AI thinks that Fleece looks like, because he got it way wrong, people. And this is inevitably why you have to watch what you use from any artificial intelligence program, because ChatGPT doesn't always get it right. I will talk to you guys in the next video. I hope you had a great Sunday, and it's time for me to start getting lit up with Pearl Beer.